Welcome to the latest episode of Trojans Wired, the podcast, which is an in-house production of the website Trojans Wire. We are part of the College Wire Network. Back at you with USC women's basketball analyst Cece Clay. A lot going on. And hey, if you missed it, all right, Cece at her YouTube channel, Let's Talk USC Women's Basketball. Cece went one-on-one with a USC and women's basketball legend, Cynthia Cooper. Should know her name. Won national championships with USC, coached USC, been there, done that in the college and pro ranks. So, Cece, I listened to your conversation. I'll have some follow-ups, but just first, let me get your big picture reaction to how was it to go one-on-one, not on the court, but on a podcast with the legend Cynthia Cooper.
Yeah, it was really fun because the conversation really flowed, and she's really if you know Cynthia, she's kind of funny, but you have to know her to understand her funny side. But I thought that she was very. What I loved about that interview is that she was very open and honest with the way things went from her high school career, to college and even in coaching. How she said she made mistakes and she regrets the mistakes that she made. And so I thought that was really, really, really cool of her to be able to just to come on and be honest and open and not shy away from any of the questions that I asked her or any of the conversation that we had. I also thought some of the gems that she said, young players should really be able to relate to, as far as understanding your role and really buying into that role and doing it to the best of your ability and just things like that. So it was great to talk to Cynthia. I've known her for a while, but to actually sit one on one with her and do an interview was it was different, but it was really cool at the same time.
Yeah, I love when former players and former coaches go really deep inside what it's like to be a player, to be a coach. I thought Cynthia Cooper was really candid, and you made the point, open and honest about failures, about limitations, about struggles, from the hardships she faced, as a high school and college athlete, really candid. I like that. But the other thing I really appreciated and enjoyed about your conversation with her, Cece, was that, you've talked to me a lot on this show about the right mentality for a player to have, especially Kiki. Like, right, and we talked about this recently right after the WNBA draft.
Yeah.
Kiki needs to own the floor. She needs to take the court knowing she's the big dog. Be assertive, be confident, and to an extent, you have to have an ego in sports, whether it's being a player, being a coach. The ego is not a negative thing unless it's like unchecked. But your ego needs to feed your sense of ambition. So it's not selfishness, it's the way you compete, the
Yeah.
way you carry yourself. That's part of your job as a basketball player, having that winner's mentality, which helps your game, it helps your coach, it helps your team. Cynthia Cooper really seemed to get inside that winner's mindset. I really appreciated what she did there.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool too how she said that, when she left Locke, she was all everything, and even after only playing since she was a freshman really, and that when she went to USC and the first time she saw Cheryl Miller, she was in awe, and she said, that she had to get better because Cheryl Miller was better than what she expected. And so just hearing that coming from her, because Cynthia Cooper is so confident, within herself. And so just hearing those stories about what she went through, culturally when she went to USC, how it was a big change and the support that she had from her team. I think she named every teammate, that she had back then. And the other thing that I thought was really cool was when she talked about how she didn't want to be a six man. You know what I mean? That she was very upset about being a six man until she and Linda Sharp got together and Linda Sharp showed her stats. And so it's just, again, going back to understanding your role and buying into that role. And just like you said, when she went overseas, how they didn't want her. Nobody wanted her. She had to prove herself again because she was behind three All-Americans. So just her candor in explaining the will to fight and to never give up and to own who she is was just, I mean, for young players, it's so important that they hear that interview with Cooper, because it meant so much to why she is who she is today. And it means a lot too, because it defines who she is, her character, but not running away from all the mistakes that she made, and owning that and just being a better person because of the mistakes that she made. So I just, I hope I have her on again, because it was truly a fun and eye-opening experience for me to listen to her speak candidly the way she did.
I think a great lesson for young people from Cynthia Cooper. Obviously, she offered many lessons, and you've talked about some of them already, Cece. But for me, one insight really came through, and that is for young people, there's no thought that's wrong. You're not a bad person if you think certain thoughts, have certain feelings. What matters is what you do with those feelings, how you channel them, how you transform them. So, like being in awe of Cheryl Miller, it might like that might convey weakness, right? You're starstruck on your own team. You're kind of looking up at another teammate, or conversely, like with Juju, people might say Juju is selfish. She takes so many shots. Why is she always so assertive and demanding of the ball? Cynthia Cooper talked about how great players, like, they want the rock and they want the responsibility. It's not it's not selfishness in the pejorative negative sense. It's leadership. Like, that's why she wants the rock. She wants to be the leader of the team, which is good. And like, she's trying to contribute to the collective. What Juju does, she does it for the collective, not just for herself. Now, to say that there's a level of self-interest there, sure, but it's healthy self-interest. It's healthy selfishness. And I think Cynthia Cooper really underscored and clarified that point. Being selfish is not bad if you do it the right way for the right reasons. And players can be tagged with those labels, selfish, ball hog, whatever. It's not wrong to have a feeling of selfishness. What matters is how you channel that, how you display it, doing it in the right way. Like, players can be fearful of, oh, I shouldn't feel this way. Nah, Cynthia Cooper says you can feel however you'd like. Have that freedom, but just always be sure that it's being channeled for the right reasons. And also, what Cynthia Cooper also said is the great players, they want to be coached. They want to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
developed. So you can be selfish, but as long as your greatness is being developed and you're not all the way there yet, you haven't figured everything out, you should want to be coached, because that's how you yourself get better. So that's self-interest, but in a very healthy and positive way. I thought Cynthia Cooper really connected those feelings, and she gave young people permission to feel whatever they want to feel, but just as long as they're building their feelings in a positive, constructive way. I think that's a very good message for young people.
Yeah, and I thought it was really cool too how she explained that, she was from Watts. She lived in Watts, and you can relate that to Juju. Juju's family grew up in Watts, and the connection that they have as far as community is concerned. And how that what was surprising to me was when she said that USC was her only offer. And that was being because she was from Watts. Nobody wanted to bring in a kid from Watts because it was such a rough area at the time. It was known for gangs, just like she said, and so on and so forth. So I just thought, and then also the relation to the teams, right? To the superstar teams. She went through it in college where she had Cheryl Miller and the McGee twins, and then she went through it when she was in the WNBA. In both situations, she had very different roles. At USC, she was a six person, but she was a star at six person when she finally embraced it. And then in the WNBA, she was a star amongst the stars. You know what I mean? And how that was embraced. So I just thought, man, her story, if people haven't watched that podcast, they really need to watch it and really listen to what she was saying, because you can really get a lot from a little bit of time. I mean, that podcast was 50 minutes. It probably could have went an hour and a half. But just if you really listen to the things that she said, you can tell that from her experience in Watts to now, she's been through a lot. and she's been able to embrace all that she's been through and learn, and try to become still at the age of 62 a better person every day.
Yeah, if folks listening to this podcast or watching it on YouTube, on Cece's YouTube channel, if you have a daughter who is either playing sports or is thinking about playing competitive sports, hey, listen to this Cynthia Cooper conversation with Cece Clay. You're going to get a lot of really good, solid, not just information, it's also just life experience and perspective that could guide your daughter trying to play competitive sports, pursue that in a very healthy, sound way, which can lead to holistic personal growth and development. Because of course, we want to win basketball games. Obviously, that's part of being an athlete, but growing as a person. And Cece, like you've talked a lot about how Cynthia Cooper's growth as a whole person, comfortable in her own skin, able and willing to admit mistakes, but also taking great satisfaction in her achievements, in her accomplishments. Really, a really good, well-rounded example for young women to follow.
Yeah, it was a very fun experience for me. And to those of you that don't know Cynthia Cooper, she doesn't do a lot of interviews. You don't see her jumping on a lot of podcasts or just really talking to a lot of people. She kind of just stays in her own lane and does her own thing. So when she told me that she would do it, it took some time for us to put this together. But I mean, I was humbled by that experience because she doesn't do a lot of podcasts and interviews. So for her to really come on, my show, and really because it's regarding USC and the USC community, she still wants to help build that USC community. So it was really humbling for me to have her say yes, to doing the podcast with me. So really appreciated it.
Awesome. People trust CC Clay, and to segue now here on our podcast, London Jones trusted Lindsay Gottlieb
Yeah.
in USC. How about that? So a
Hmm.
UCLA to USC transfer happened several days ago. We told you on social media we were going to get around to it. So here we are. We've gotten around to it. Cece, your reaction to London Jones joining the USC Trojans?
At first I was kind of like perplexed, like, okay, she's not the typical guard that we would go after. She's 5'4". We're a big guard type of team. But then when I started looking at her game film and talking to folks um, close to the situation, um, she's a really good pickup for us. One, because of her 3-point shooting, 35% from three, and just she's not just a catch and three shooter. She can shoot off the bounce. She's good in transition. And I think, as I said in my video, with Beth Burns leading the defensive charge, we're going to see, a lot more defensively from London Jones than we saw at UCLA. So just a good pickup, something that we need. And I think she's going to be a great asset to our team.
Cece, I would have to imagine that there were very intense conversations about this next particular point. How are you going to work with Jazzy Davidson? And I'm thinking that there's an expectation that Jazzy Davidson is going to be able to create, dribble drive, and create, draw all sorts of attention in the paint, and she's going to be kicking that ball to London Jones in the corner. Like that's going to be bread and butter for USC's offense, especially before Juju Watkins gets back onto the court. I'd have to think that like that was a really big centerpiece of drawing London Jones to USC.
Yeah, I think the main thing with London Jones is we needed somebody to stretch the floor and space the floor, just so we could play make because Jazzy Davidson is a playmaker. And then we have Cara from Georgia Tech who can drive. She's not like a Kyrie Irving type of dribbler, but she can power dribble and get to the basket. So I think you're gonna see a little bit change in offense this year where we have a lot more cutting action and slashing action in our offense and playmaking. So I'm excited. And yeah, London Jones, getting to her spots is going to be key. And I think the other thing you got to think about here is, with the experience that we had last year as a team with the 7 freshmen compared to the experience that we had the previous year with the Ivy Leaguers, I think one of the things that the team looked at as a whole was we need maturity. we need maturity on this team, and we need people that understand spacing on the floor and that have high Q to understand where to get to their spots. And I think that as you see the players that they're getting understand spacing, understand where to cut, how to cut, to find the open spots. So I think that's going to be a big difference with next year's squad as well.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned a lot over the past few months, as the season wound down, a lot of freshmen were being relied on to be core rotational players. So getting veteran pickups in the portal, obvious point of emphasis for Lindsay Gottlieb and this coaching staff at USC. One more follow-up on London Jones before we continue, and that is, do you think there's going to be an emphasis on London Jones spotting up in the corners and on the wings, or is she going to be, looking for a three-point shot pretty much anywhere? Because obviously, if you can get an open corner three, those shots usually are easier to make because the line, the three-point arc, levels off. It's a slightly shorter distance, and you can also just occupy a defender. If London Jones is just in the corner, that's going to take a defender out of the way, not able to provide a double team on either Jazzy or Kara. Take your pick, or also Kennedy Smith. Any initial thoughts on if London Jones is going to be kind of a corner wing shooter, or if they're gonna really be very intentional about moving her around on the court?
She shoots 37% from the corner three, and I think she shot 33% from above the break three. So, big difference. But with London Jones, like I said, I think that the spacing, and if you watch her on film, it's about her getting to her spots, effectively and getting the ball. Now, if the offense is going to center around more cutting and slashing between Jazzy and Kennedy, it's going to be interesting to see how she fits that role. Now, like I said, she can shoot off the bounce. It's not necessarily has to be a catch and shoot three. Will we get to her those shots? Yeah, I think we will. But she's one that the difference is if you saw Avery last year, and this is not a knock on Avery, but if you saw Avery last year when she would get the ball to shoot, there was never a pump fake and then dribble around and shoot. It was always a catch and three, like she had to shoot it. She had nothing else in her offensive weaponry to be able to get around players and shoot that mid range. It was always, I'm open, I got to release it real quick. Whereas with London Jones, she can catch the ball, pump fake, and go around you and shoot that floater or shoot a mid range or do a step back three to the right or to the left. So that's the difference. And I think that's going to be key for us is she can get to her spots and she can read the floor to where she can pump fake and go around and shoot it, or if she needs to shoot it right where she is or pass the ball off. So the other thing I want to mention is with the hiring of Nikki Blue from LA Sparks, and she was the interim coach for the Phoenix Mercury. That's bringing in WNBA. She knows a lot of X's and O's. So I think Lindsay is going to lean on her a little bit more for the offensive side of things. I'm not sure. I'm just guessing with Nikki knowing X's and O's that Nikki's going to be incorporated into the offensive game planning. So that's where you're going to see a lot of different offensive sets this year within our team.
So that's the Wendell Farrell replacement. Sounds like a pretty credentialed replacement. Lindsay Gottlieb doing a very good job pulling
Yeah.
in pulling
You know,
in
the,
Nikki
the the
Blue.
one thing that I like about Lindsay is, she's not for show. You know what I mean? She doesn't feel like she has to go out and get the top name player out of the portal to make this an effective team, or just, hire somebody that, is woo 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 to make this, a big deal. She just kind of goes out about her business, doesn't listen to media, doesn't listen to anything, doesn't listen to the noise, is what I'm trying to say. And she just picks off things one by one. I know what this team needs. I know the flavor that I want for this team. I know what I want culturally. I know what I want mindset wise. I know what I want, that's going to help this team at USC right now. And I think, she's looking at a 2-year plan, right? Because Juju will be back not this year, but the next year. So she's looking at it as a 2-year plan of what she has to do to get through this year, to get to next year. So, I can't give kudos enough to Lindsay and how she builds out this team and just doesn't listen to the noise. She does what she needs to do, and with the next commitment we got, Diane, how you pronounce her name? Diana. I'm
We'll go
thinking,
with Dayana. I haven't heard her name mentioned
yeah,
on the air,
Diana.
so we'll adjust
Yeah.
if we need to. But Dayana Mendes from
Yeah.
Washington State, and 2 years ago this would have been a Pac-12 portal poll. Now it's a WCC portal poll. I don't know if that means anything, but let's talk about Dayana Mendes.
And that's just what I'm talking about. She was freshman, and she was all WC freshman team. She made the all WD freshman team, went under the radar. This is a diamond in the rough that nobody was thinking about, that Lindsay pulled out of the hat. We're going to get this girl. She's young. She's only freshman. She's a sophomore. And what is so intriguing about this is she's from Paris. Who did Lindsay go get out of the portal 2 years ago when they went on that NCAA run? The second year Lindsay was the coach, Katie Sissoko, right? She came from Minnesota. Nobody was looking at her, right? She grabs Katie Sissoko from Paris, France, came and was an all, Pac 10 or all Pac 12, all conference player, went to the pros, played for Phoenix for a year, and then is playing ball overseas, totally under the radar, right? And Katie Sissoko came in as a pro. Everybody was calling her pro when she came in, and everybody was like, who is this Katie Sissoko chick? Nobody knew who she was. So I think, you know, Lindsay has an eye for talent. Like I said, Lindsay knows what she wants. She's building this team out the way she wants it. She's got a nice young lady who was all freshman of the year. She needs some work, but if you watch her, when I'm going to do the film breakdown, her footwork is just amazing around the basket, which is what we need, right? Amazing around the basket. She's very athletic, very long, has long arms, and so it's just a good get for us.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the Washington State program, Kami Etheridge has done a really good job with that program. We remember the Pac-12 tournament championship 2 years ago, USC then winning the Pac-12 tournament the next year. But Kami Etheridge, known for creating good, tough, defensive, hard-nosed players. That had to be at least part of the calculus that Lindsay Gottlieb and Beth Burns made when they said, "Hey, come on over here to Los Angeles."
Yeah, yeah, and I'm sure. Yeah, they talked to the coach before they went and got her to get her opinion. And she's an international player, and we're not really known to take on international players other than Katie Sissoko, but she had been at Minnesota. So, this is just, when I saw we were getting her, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a diamond in the rough. You know, so very very happy about that, and I'll be doing film breakdown on her probably today or tomorrow.
All right, let's get your overview of the portal and the USC roster as it stands, because obviously USC needs another big. Also of note, like Corey Close and UCLA, they're struggling. They are struggling to fit pieces around their roster. So USC and UCLA both still in a position of uncertainty. I would say though, USC's having the better offseason by far than UCLA to this point. Like we're not at a finished point at all, not even close. So just a really interesting dynamic in the portal. Your thoughts on where things stand and where you think things might go.
And I'm just gonna leave it at this: we are good.
That's
We are
been your
good.
theme. That's been your theme.
That
We're
we are
fine.
good.
Gonna
We're
be good.
fine. Everybody out there stressing, we're good.
Yeah, and just to underscore, most of the portal still hasn't made its choice. Like the deadline to enter the portal, that's come and gone. So the portal's closed. No more players can enter. But like there is no acute rush for these players, right? Like they
No,
can now take their time to line up their deal, make their choice, study the situations. Like in other words, Cece, it's not at a point where playing musical chairs, everyone has a seat and you're left out. We're not there. Still lots of seats, lots of chairs are still open, and we're still at a point where players can really kind of study what's out there, right? That's the right read for the portal, correct?
and it's, remember, it's about, yes, absolutely, and it's about uh, filling puzzle pieces. You see teams out there. I won't mention names, but there are a lot of teams out there that jump right when the portal opens to go grab this player, so they can make a statement socially. Oh, I got this player,
A
or I got this
splash.
player. Yeah,
Make the
make a splash.
splash. Yeah.
But those teams, if you watch every year, they'll gain 7 players, and then at the end of the season, 7 players jump in the portal. It's not about uh, quality. It's about quantity and making a splash. Make it make sense to me. Is that what you really want, or do you really want players that are going to fit your puzzle so you can build? So I think that again, USC does a really good job with not making the splash because everybody else is doing it and really looking at their puzzle, their culture at USC, and who's going to bring in to help continue to build the culture and the style of play that we want to do and mix with the players that we have. So I just laugh at some of the stuff that I see because some of the stuff that I see where teams are getting all these players, and I'm like, how's that gonna work? How's this gonna work with this? And yeah, that player scored. I'll give you an example. Tennessee, they're grabbing players out the portal, but how are they all gonna, the way her system is, how's that all gonna work? Because a lot of players that she's grabbing in the portal want to play. They want minutes. So it's like, wow, and so I just don't think it's about quantity. I think it's more about quality. And that's the mindset at USC. And, that's why I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, well, that brings up an interesting point. I mean, there are some programs and some coaches where, you just you get a 10-player rotation and you're putting them in and out and they all are playing in the area of like 20 minutes. A good historical example, and this is not women's basketball, but it's basketball. Rick Pitino's 1996 national championship team at Kentucky, that was a 10 deep team, and he would just be rotating guys in and out. He does full court press, intense 94-foot pressure. If you're playing 10 players 20 minutes and you're spreading the minutes out, that way, when everyone plays, they can max out in terms of energy. You're not worried about playing a guy 30, 35 minutes. Just when you're on the floor, you're giving it 100%, but you're going to get ample rest. So, should we assume from that, Cece, that at Tennessee, that they want like a 10, 11 player
That's what they did.
rotation and they're going to distribute the minutes? Because in that case, the numbers game, quantity more than quality, actually makes sense. But do you think that Tennessee is in a position to do that, or they're just kind of jumping the gun in the portal?
They did it last year. That's what their mantra is. Like their players, they're on the court for 2, 3 minutes at a time, and then she'll sub in a whole nother 5, 2, 3 minutes at a time, and she is just a rotation. The question I have with that are the players that she's bringing in from the portal. One, are they going to be used to playing that style? And two, they want the ball. You know what I mean? They want to be the scorer. So how's that going to work? Certain players that they've gotten, don't want to play the position that they've been asked to play at other places. They want to play different positions. And so it's just intriguing to me. I don't know. The portal is just funny to me. I don't know. It's crazy, but we'll see. Tennessee, that's what they're known for. That's what the coach is known for. This is their second year there. I'm interested to see what Notre Dame is going to do because I think I've only seen 1 or 2 portal pickups for that team. Um, and why is that happening at Notre Dame where they're not picking up anybody? So, UCLA too, they're not picking up many people. So I don't know. I just sit back and I watch what's going on and I just don't worry. It's not for me to worry about. I'm just an analyst and a podcaster.
You're just talking some ball. Yep.
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 Just talking. Let's talk USC women's basketball. That's what I do.
All right. So let's talk USC women's basketball. That's your YouTube channel. You have a lot going on there, and you also have some exciting news about your growing podcast, Cece. So tell
Yeah.
everybody what's going on.
So yeah, on the YouTube channel is continuing to grow. At a rapid race, which is really, really good to see. Still going to be doing these breakdown videos and so on and so forth and putting the podcast on that YouTube channel. But the good thing is, as I announced on Twitter earlier, my podcast is now streaming on every platform that there is to be streamed on, from Apple to Spotify, iHeartRadio, Player FM, Amazon. So all of them, all the main, you can listen to it anywhere. Let's Talk USA Women's Basketball. You can pull it up on any platform and listen. And all 10 episodes that are on my YouTube channel are on there on those platforms right now. And from here on out, everything that we do and every podcast that I do with guests or interviews will be transferred over to those platforms. So really excited about that. People have been asking for it. I finally got it done. It means a lot to me. And again, guys, it's not just for me. I'm not doing this for me because I have a full-time job that takes 80% of my time, and this takes 20% of my time. Um, I'm doing it to build the USC women's basketball brand. I'm so passionate about this team, been passionate about this team for 30 years. My son is gone, so I have some time on my hands. So I figured, why not do this? And it's turning out to be one of the best things that I've ever done. It's fun. I love it. It's building, and it's for y'all. It's for USC. It's for the fans to build this brand, to understand, to create better relationships between the fans and the USC program. So I still say we're just beginning, we're just starting. But hey, thank you guys for supporting, and thank you guys for pushing me every day to do more with this channel. And let's continue to grow it. So I'm asking you guys to go on those platforms and rate it, recommend it, whatever podcast platform you listen to. Rate the channel, recommend it, share it. Let's get it to grow just like we are the YouTube channel.
All right, and you have a London Jones breakdown on your YouTube
Yep.
channel.
Have the London Jones breakdown. I'll be doing the Mendes breakdown probably this afternoon or tomorrow sometime. And then I have some podcasts coming up, and I think you and I are going to have cameo on this podcast Monday. So just
Okay,
working on some stuff.
and how about your Substack? Don't want to forget that.
Yeah. I did put a story out on Substack about offense versus defense, which is the best strategy. I'll probably write another story on Sunday to get that out, depending on my podcast schedule now. So we'll figure it out. But yeah, I do have Substack too.
Yep, don't want to forget.
Yeah.
And hey, with the NBA playoffs going on and the WNBA regular season just a few weeks away, like it's a great like there's never a bad time to learn more about basketball, but CC Clay is taking you inside offense, defense, the particulars of the sport. Like every podcast, we try to be a source of basketball education. So CC Clay continuing that part of her larger mission, both at YouTube and Substack. You want to be sure to check her out. All right, any final thoughts before we close it down, Cece?
If you guys like my background, that is the 1982-83 team that won the championship. As you can see, there's Cynthia Cooper in the back, and then there's Cheryl Miller. Yeah, I just found this picture. It's actually on the podcast. I put it on the video podcast, but I kind of like the background. It's a cool picture. It's pretty cool. So, yeah, if you guys are watching this on video, I hope you like it. But that's my final thought. Hey, and don't worry, Lindsay Gottlieb got it under control because she is the GOAT. So don't fret. We're good.
And that's a great reminder, Cece, as we close it down here on this episode. If you haven't watched or listened to Cece's one-on-one interview with Lindsay Gottlieb, remember she did that a month ago before she talked to Cynthia Cooper. Cece's just bringing in the big names here. We have a Lindsay Gottlieb podcast. We have a Cynthia Cooper podcast brought to you by Cece Clay. If you haven't yet listened to each of those episodes, well, this is the time to do it, right? USC's not making a huge splash at the NFL draft. Go on over to Cece's USC Women's Basketball podcast for her conversations with the big names in women's basketball, particularly at USC, Lindsay Gottlieb and Cynthia Cooper. All right, that's all for this episode. We'll be back at you pretty soon with another episode of the Trojans Wire podcast for Cece Clay. This is Matt Zemek. We'll see you next time.
Right on.